Intel Foundry, the new name of Intel Foundry Services, and they had a very big event with some. Actually, didn't think they were going to announce a customer, but they did.
Yeah, I know, right? So this is you have to admire Intel and Pat Gelsinger in particular. I mean, so you can look at their stock, you can look at their portfolio and say, well, they were behind, their competitor here or there, and you can point out faults. But when he came in to right the ship, he took this 4-year or 5 nodes and 4-year approach, which is unheard of, as part one of kind of how we wanted to turn the company around. And part two, it was we're going to re-enter the Foundry game. And I think a lot of people were skeptical when he talked about it, when he made this announcement. And I don't know what, Pat, is it a year and a half later, a year later, they have this event where, lo and behold, Intel Foundry, I don't know what you would call it, what the event is. It
I think it was called Connect or Direct Connect or something.
Yeah, loads of announcements coming out, right? But they're not just in the Foundry business; they're in the Foundry business, and they're going to be filling those coffers. He's got a goal to be. I think he said something like 50% of the output of silicon in the next few years, which seems incredibly bullish. But they signed an agreement with Microsoft. He has the CEO Rene of ARM up on stage talking with him. He's talking about building chips for NVIDIA and AMD. He is, two things about this I really appreciate. One, he's separating Foundry from silicon design, right? He understands that, one feeds the other, but he also understands that he needs to fill these manufacturing floors with customers beyond Intel, and he's trying to create that separation so that he can be a player here in the U.S. That's part one. Part two is he's taking a very, very aggressive approach, and it's interesting. It's like they've gone from this, Intel for Intel and only Intel to a very open kind of approach and embracing, everybody out there, understanding that it's good for the industry in general. So super impressed. Also announced 14A, which I'm sure you're going to have some opinions on. But he is definitely getting out there further and further on the Foundry side as that 5 nodes in 4 years vision is being realized as well. So, bully to him, bully to Intel. The company is definitely back, and I would caution folks not to just look at some benchmarking to measure where they are competitively. He's making moves that is going to have an impact on the business as a whole, not just kind of bringing in money on one side.
Yeah, talking about victory laps.
Yep.
3 years ago, about a month after Pat Gelsinger came back into the company, I interviewed the guy, and they were going to make some big announcements. This IDM 2.0, which talked about Foundry service. You remember the belief was that Intel was going to sell all their fabs off.
That's right.
And they're just going to be a design company. I'm like, well, that's dumb. That would basically put the company out of business. We saw what happened when AMD separated itself from Global Foundries, and what a nightmare that ended up being. You have to put like 5 to 7 years of work in place to get even on standard development tools.
Yeah.
Because when by Synopsys and Cadence. But in my article, I didn't Babe Ruth it. Okay, I said, here's what the company needs to do to get back on track. Sapphire Rapids was 2 years late. Intel 7 nanometer, I think, was 4 years late.
That's right.
And they went from having a year and a half lead to being behind TSMC by like 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, wait, how are you going to do this again?
Yeah.
Gelsinger says, yeah, we're going to take our manufacturing and technology and we're going to offer it to everybody. And everybody's like, we don't want your stuff, right? You guys have fallen off the wagon. But anyways, 5 nodes in 4 years. I think they've accomplished 4 in 3, I think, so far.
5 is coming. Yeah.
And then you've got the political instability factor of, do you really want all your eggs in one basket? I believe that NVIDIA will be a packaging customer, and not just because TSMC doesn't have enough CoWoS capability, but because the combination of EMIB plus Foveros is good, right? And by the way, it's also not a stretch. NVIDIA has to run through Intel on the Ramp C defense contract anyways.
Yeah.
I guess the big question is wafers. They've got the number 3 mobile processor company, MediaTek, that is signed up. And I believe as soon as Intel shows its capabilities, we're going to pull at China and say, hey, anything that's critical infrastructure, not just defense, but finance, universities, telecommunications, the wafers all have to be done here in the US. And that's going to force Apple and Qualcomm to get on board. That's a thesis. We'll see if I'm right. If I'm wrong, we won't talk about it. But,
what about the whole notion of Intel building stuff for AMD? It's like cats and dogs living together, you know, like the line from Ghostbusters.
I mean, my advice to AMD and the Lisa Su team is put any animosity aside and go in there and figure this thing out.
Yeah.
Do the math if it's beneficial. I mean,
right.
And it's not free to do a separate mask set. You know, it doesn't take twice as much work and twice as many engineers on an overall program to do a leading edge mask set. And you might have to spend $20-25 million to do that just to get the mask set going. But each process is a little bit unique. Paul, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say Intel spun off Programmable Solutions last year.
that's right.
And
Yeah, they actually announced it. Yeah.
and down the road, what do you think about them spinning off the Foundry?
Yeah, I could see them first setting up as a tracking stock, kind of like they did like they're doing with Programmable Solutions, and then what they did with Mobileye.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the ARM SoftBank. You know, you own 90%. Is it really a separate company? I don't know. I'm not an equity guy, but I do think they would have a lot more value creation. But it's got to be value creation. Final thing, because we've got 4 topics to chew through in 17 minutes here.
I'll be fast.
No. Yeah, and these are earnings. Hopefully, will be easier, but they need to be truly fully autonomous before you can break the umbilical cord. You know, otherwise the baby dies. So that's not a happy time.